Well, I hope everybody's concerned about that. I mean, governments, the history of governments all over the world is that they love to take people's assets, whether they should or not. And that is the way bureaucrats and politicians think, unfortunately. So everybody should be prepared for something going wrong. Everybody should have a plan B. Everybody should have some assets outside of their own country. If nothing else, they're great opportunities in other countries as well. But also, you have to be concerned that something might go wrong. And especially these days, with what you see, with that, as you brought up, you can see governments are taking assets from other people that are legitimately earned, and governments are just taking them away and say, okay, too bad for you. And it's hard to get those assets back when it happens. And it is forcing many people to reconsider having assets in US dollars. Again, I don't like saying it, but I can see it happening. And what we all need to be doing is figuring out, okay, what's the next currency? I don't know. If you know, Roger, please do not announce it today. You know, buy some and then and send me an email. Send me an email. I want to buy the two. I'm looking every day.
Right. Yeah, it's a funny world we live in, for sure. All of this, by the way, all of this is so fascinating because you're constantly learning, you're constantly like looking for what's changing, and I think there's a whole aspect about education itself that I want to touch on because we're going to come to a Q&A in a moment. But obviously, everyone's here because they realize that the best defense for a changing world is to learn and to find out what's coming next, or at least be prepared as to what might be coming next. And so there's two aspects to this. One, I'd love to hear just for everyone who's on here, what you've been doing lately that you've found very valuable on the learning side. Maybe it's some books that you read that you think, okay, these are the kind of things you should be reading, or certain people you're following, you think, okay, they're doing a really great job on that. That's the first question. Second one is related to the book you wrote for your daughters, but I'm going to come on to that in a moment. But on that first part, any tips in learning or things to be looking at that's going to really help those who are looking to stay at the more informed edge of the learning curve for investing?
I want to feed in on something you said. If people get knowledgeable, they will start getting worried about what's going on. The more you know about the world in 2024, 23, 24, the more worried you're going to get. I assure you, the more you know, the more worried you're going to be. But if you get worried, then you get prepared. And if you're prepared, you might do very, very well, no matter what hits you. And by being prepared, do not listen to hot tips. One of the first things I learned in investing was do not listen to hot tips. Hot tips will bankrupt you. I mean, everybody wants a hot tip. Everybody wants to be rich this month. But I assure you, please stay away from hot tips. Invest in what you yourself know a lot about and you yourself understand. And then when something goes wrong, you'll know what to do. If I told you to buy something, you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't know what to do if it went up, and you wouldn't know what to do if it went down. You don't know why you own it in the first place. So my advice to everybody is stay with what you know, and then you will probably become a successful investor. But you have to know a lot about the world, especially in 2024, 25, because there are a lot of strange things happening, and it's not going to be fun for a lot of us. I hope I survive. I hope we all survive. So I will learn from Roger. We will all learn. I hope, so that we can all survive. But I do want to emphasize again, Roger, we've had bear markets since the beginning of time. And so people need to understand, you said, what am I doing? I am constantly looking at the world, partly because I'm fascinated by the world, but partly because I want to find new places. There's always some place going up, and there's always some place going down, whether it's a company or a country or a family, no matter what. So I am constantly looking for. I bought some shares in Uzbekistan recently because I hope I see dramatic positive changes taking place in Uzbekistan. I mean, it's not a big market, but it's a new market, which makes it even more interesting and exciting for me because there's not a lot of people there yet. That's mainly what I'm doing these days, looking for currencies and other markets, because I mean, the US market's near an all-time high. Many markets are near all-time highs. I prefer buying things that are in distress. I would be buying Russia right now.
Right.
I have learned that when you buy a country at war or civil war, if you have staying power, you usually are going to make a great success. Well, I cannot invest in Russia right now. I can't, in Venezuela, Iran, there are other countries. I'd love to be doing something in Venezuela. I'd love to be doing something in Iran, but I cannot because I'm an American citizen.
Yes.
You know, I'm a citizen of the land of the free. I'm afraid we're not so free like we used to be. But some people can find disasters. Investing in disaster is often a good way to go.
Right, right. Yeah. The whole aspect of being able to be able to like see the imbalances, but then actually through obviously wherever we do invest, that that money flows in that place, and then actually writes those balances as well. And so I'm a real great believer that entrepreneurs, investors, have a really important constructive part to play in how we actually leave the world a better place through the actions that we actually take. The book you wrote, A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life Investing, which was kind of like written for your children. Your take on education. I mean, obviously our entire group is about education, and it's specifically about entrepreneurial education, right? And it's not just for those adults who are thinking, okay, we didn't learn this at school. It's actually for school as well. And that's why we just acquired, high school or university, so we can build financial literacy, and more importantly, teach those out there to be self-sufficient, so they don't have to go get a job if they know how to create their own job and do what they really love in life as well. And that's not an easy thing, because lots of people say that's something that's needed, but there aren't that many people out there trying to actually make it happen at the moment, because it's complex and there's a lot of government regulations in education and so on. Writing that book and actually like deciding to put that information in there. I'd love to get your sense as to what was the most rewarding parts about putting that wisdom down the way you were doing it, and what is your take in terms of what you believe the future of education should be for all of us?
Well, education is extremely important. I mean, education is what yanked me out of the backwoods of Alabama and got me wherever I am and wherever I'm going. So I cannot believe how big a supporter of education I am in all aspects. So please keep doing what you're doing. And I hope everybody realizes how important education is and supports it. This all started with, since I never had these children, I kept thinking of things I wanted to make sure they knew when they were adults. And so that's how the Book of Oz. Somebody said, why don't you make it a book? So I wrote it down of lessons. It's obviously not for children. A 9-year-old probably would not understand much of what's in the book. It's a book for grown-ups. But it's certainly something that I hope that my children, when they're 28 or whatever, will read and understand and get something from. It obviously has stuff about investing too, because I do want everybody should understand money. I think everybody has seen many families or individuals, companies' lives who get destroyed because they don't understand money and they don't understand investing. And we all must understand money in order to have stable lives ourselves and successful lives. So education about finance and education about everything is very important. It teaches you about the world and what's going on, but certainly about money and finance is extremely important. The amount of financial illiteracy that exists in the world is still mind-boggling to me, and I'm sure to you as well. So first of all, you're doing a good thing, because I know that there's a huge market. There's a huge market for what you're trying to do, because there's so many people who don't understand finance and investing. So my advice to you is keep up the good work. If you do a good job, you're going to be unbelievably successful, because the world needs you. And that's why I wrote this book for my kids. That's how it all started.
Very good.
I wanted them to understand that money is to be saved, not to be spent. You know, when they were babies, I got them piggy banks, and whenever they got some money, I took them to the piggy bank and put it in the piggy bank so that they would grow up thinking, oh, when you get money, you're supposed to put it in the bank, not spend it. I hope that lesson sinks into them when they're adults and they don't get in trouble.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Well, a fantastic book, and yeah, very, very good to hear your thoughts on education and where that's going. And again, I guess this is the thing: it's lifelong learning; it never stops, right? So it's about just having that learning mindset as well going forward. I actually have a whole number of questions. I know we're not going to get through all of them because there's so many of them, but I'm going to pick certain questions here and just get your thoughts on it. I have a question here from Janina here. She says, this is a question where she's saying, my husband heard you, Jim, many years ago when you were traveling, and said that there will be a time when at parties, farmers will be in focus and bankers will be hiding in the corners. Do you think this is going to happen soon? Will smaller farmers be allowed to exist, or will they be forced into big corporations? And I'll add an extra point to that. I saw where you were saying some of the biggest commodity investments are, and one big one is agriculture, right? So this is all directly linked to this question as well.
Well, agriculture has been a disaster for a long time, and disasters often lead to investment opportunities. In China, they have a word, Wei Ji, it means disaster and opportunity, the same thing. By the way, the Japanese have that word, the Koreans have that word. Asians been around a long time, and they know that disaster, can lead to opportunity, and it's something we should all learn as well. Well, agriculture has been a big disaster for a long time. The average age of farmers in America is 58. In Japan, it's 66. The highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. More people in America study public relations than study agriculture. So either agriculture is going to change, or we're not going to have any clothes to wear, we're not going to have any food to eat. So, and I can see changes taking place. So yes, I see great opportunities in agriculture, if you like it. I mean, I'm not going to become a farmer because I'd be hopeless. I would fail. But if you like being outdoors and getting dirty or whatever, then you should think about agriculture, because there are fantastic opportunities developing in agriculture as we speak. And my way is to invest in agriculture, but if you love it, go do it. Learn it. Can you drive a tractor, Roger?
I cannot drive a tractor, and I'm waiting for the robot tractors to all arrive. But
well, living in Singapore is not much use to drive a tractor.
That's true. That's true.
People who live elsewhere might consider becoming a farmer.
Very good. Okay, I have a question from Andrew here. Interesting question. At the start of the 21st century, you predicted the rise of the East and the shift to China and Asia, as we've been talking about. First 20 years or so has proved this. But will it continue in the same way? Do you not think China may have peaked? And what about the rest of Asia? Many thanks. So that's from Andrew. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that? And if I could just add an extra piece on that, even not just the momentum of economically what can be done, but even how the Chinese government have their own views as to what they want to cap or what they want to be directing or managing as well, really.
Well, as I look around, I don't see anybody else besides China, but that doesn't mean China's not going to have problems. America was the most successful country in the 20th century, but along the way, we had a horrible civil war. We had many depressions with a D. We had massacres in the streets. We had many problems, but we became a great success. So China will certainly have problems. They're going to have some bankruptcies now, and the government says they will let people go bankrupt. I wish in America we would let people go bankrupt. It will certainly be good for China and good for the world if people get into trouble and they let them go bankrupt. So yeah, we'll certainly have plenty of problems in China. But that's the way the world works. Chinese government has been cutting back on some things, but there's been a huge property bubble in China for a while. Now, Beijing is doing something about it. They talked about it for a while, but now they're actually acting and people are going bankrupt. That's got to be good for any country that has a big property bubble. So some of the things that are happening are, in my view, going to be problems for a while, but in the end will be good. And Roger, I don't know if the Chinese government's the best government in the world. I'm sure they're going to make as many mistakes as every government does, but so far they've been a very successful government in the past 40 years. And I would suspect, I don't see anybody else on the horizon who can do with the clout that China has, because they're a big country. I mean, once Korea opens the 38, once the DMZ opens in Korea, it's going to be extremely exciting, but it'll never have the clout that China does because it's not nearly as big.
Yeah. Can I add to that? India and Africa. That question actually came up from someone who is in Africa, from Tosin, who's actually in Africa right now, I believe. What's your views on those two continents in the context of Southeast Asia and China?
Well, if you can only visit one country in your life, you should go to India, because there's no country like it. The people, the food, the culture, the man-made sites, the natural sites. Oh my gosh, there's nothing like it. It also has the worst bureaucracy in the world. I mean, the Indians learned bureaucracy from the English, and then they took it to a higher plane. So you can imagine how bad the bureaucracy is in India. But there's some fantastic things in India, and I love India a lot. I don't see it being the next China. I mean, in 1980, India was much richer than China. You know the rest of that story, that now China has run circles around them. So I would continue to, if you know some smart Indians, by all means invest in them, but be careful of the government. But Africa, I mean, there are more than 50 countries in Africa, Roger, so it's hard to give you a simple answer. But there are great fortunes going to be made in Africa if you can find the right country at the right time. I mean, I have started investing in Ghana because I see changes taking place. I recently bought some shares in Zimbabwe, which is, oh, what a disaster that is. You know, 100 years ago, Zimbabwe, it was Southern Rhodesia, was what it's called them, was one of the most successful countries in the British Empire. Along came a dictator who ruined the country, but it's a disaster now. So there may be opportunities whenever there's a disaster. It has been successful in the past, but you have to be. Rwanda, I mean, I hope to go to Rwanda soon. I see the government says many of the right things, but they're also, they say some wrong things too. So there are great opportunities in Africa, but you can't just say Africa. You got to pick which of the 50 odd countries you're going to invest in and why. And like the rest of the world, they all change. They get better, they get worse. So be careful.
It's actually very interesting when we went to Zimbabwe, and the amount of adoption of people buying cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin because of the currency being in such strife. And like when we have a resort in a game lodge in South Africa, and at the time when we bought it, everything was fairly stable. Then obviously South Africa's had like some major crises through the pandemic as well. So it's incredible just the turbulence that can actually happen between the different countries as well. Luckily, I saw that calm down a little bit now as well. And that actually is leading on to another question here. I've just got like two more questions, and then from there, I'm gonna kind of wrap it up here and say a big thank you for your time here. This question's an interesting one because it comes from someone called Anonymous Attendee, and it starts urgent question for Jim. And then it says, what are the top three suggestions you would give to someone who has lost everything and has to start again today? Which, who knows, maybe this person actually is in exactly that situation. And from your travels around the world, this might be even more of a philosophical question as well. Yeah, if you lost it all tomorrow, Jim, what would be like top three things you would do from that place?
Well, I certainly did lose it all once when I was early in my career. Actually, I made a great success and thought I was so smart. And then 6 months later, I lost it all. Just shows you how being cocky can ruin you. Don't believe you're smart because the market will show you you're not so smart. So my first advice to whoever that is, okay, you could become a priest or you can run away, you know, there are many things you can do. My urgent advice is figure out what you love the most and then pursue it and start over, because you can, if you do what you love the most, you will certainly be successful. Those are the people who are successful. And if you're not successful, it doesn't matter. You're happy. You're doing what you love. So it's quite good to be happy, because then you don't care about whether you're the richest or not the richest. So figure out what you love, start over, save your money, and start again, because many people have lost everything. Some once, some twice. I mean, there are many stories about people who have been bankrupt once or twice who become fabulous, fabulous successes. So don't despair. Find what you love the most and pursue it. And someday, Roger will call you to interview you as well. maybe Roger will hire you to teach as well.
We're open for everyone to teach, including you, Jim. When you're next back in Singapore again, we'd love to invite you down to our Junior Central, where we actually have got a whole community of entrepreneurs there as well. There is one final question. This one is straightforward in the way it's written, but I want to add a bit to it. Is from Janina, who says, "What is the name of the commodities EFT that Jim Rogers created, and how can I buy it?" So actually, it's more an ETF than an EFT, but basically, I can answer that one. That's Elements, which is linked to the Rogers International Commodities Index, which is RICI. And if you're on any trading exchange, you should be able to go search for it and find it. And my question, really, off the back of that, is: are you planning on any additional indexes or ETFs in the near or even medium future?
Well, we created these ETFs, ETNs. They trade on the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, there's one for the overall index, there's one for agriculture, there's one for metals, and there's one for energy. So there are actually 4 of them. You pick your choice. If you happen to be more bullish on energy than metals, you can do that, or you can invest in the whole index. I don't have any
what are the other ones called, Jim?
One is called Rogers International Index, the symbols are RJI, RJA, RJN, and RJZ. They're all the Rogers something index. They're all on the New York Stock Exchange, so it should be very easy for anybody in the world to buy them. You don't have to worry about liquidity because they're ETNs, and with an ETN, they will create as much as you need. If a big order comes in. That's one of the beauties about exchange traded products. So that's what I do anyway. These indexes have outperformed all the other commodity indexes, and we will see. I just want to go back to one other country that I didn't mention in Africa, and that's Botswana. Botswana is a place where I have invested in the past, but there are many stories in Africa. As I say, there are over 50 countries. So you can find your good news or your bad news. And my advice again is listen to Roger or somebody and become knowledgeable, because the knowledgeable people are the ones who are going to succeed when things get really, really bad.